Welcome to Creepin' It Real. I am Judah. Let's watch the trailer for the 1988 horror film Scarecrows. Let's get ready to nitpick. Thanks for watching. As per usual, I will be pausing the trailer and talking over it in hopes to avoid copyright claims.
At first, it seemed easy.
Hey, stop taking the money!
Take the money and drop from the sky.
Already, they are giving you pretty much the basics of this. What we have is a group of people that have robbed a bank or some kind of a payroll, I don't know, and then they hijacked a plane and had it flown to Mexico where they can make their escape. They are being pursued, so they have a time limit. However, one guy on this team of, robbers had different thoughts, and he tried to sabotage the plane to kill everybody, and he dipped the money out the side and jumped with it, hoping to make off with all of it himself. And obviously, his plans did not go as he would liked, and he did not kill everybody. They survived, and they circled back to get revenge on him for taking the money.
But they forgot that greed grips the mind like a vice, turning the simplest dreams to nightmares.
What you saw right there with that guy getting knifed, that's pretty much the extent of these kills. Pretty much. I mean, there's a little bit more, but that's pretty much the extent.
Coming to get you, Bert, you son of a bitch.
Now it's personal.
They landed in the field of a scarecrow.
Just some kind of superstitious things that are used to ward off evil spirits.
Where's that?
Fired at this thing. He just kept coming. Bullets don't stop it.
What are you talking about?
Man! Like humans!
Somebody is trying to scare us out of here.
All spoilers. I'm always gonna give spoilers. I liked the idea behind this movie. There was a story more than just, hey, there's some kids that want to go party, so they went into a haunted house and this. I liked the setup. I liked the idea that there was this story, almost a story behind the story. You got these people who pulled off this heist. Then there was a double cross. He tries to kill everybody. He fails. He jumps out of the plane. They circle back to get him. I liked this setup. These people are out to get their money back, and during this, they fall into this horror scenario. So I liked that. I liked that storyline. I thought that could have gone somewhere. But for the most part, this movie was just very bland to me. In my research looking up, several people mentioned that they watched it because of the good buzz of the movie. I've never heard of this movie until I was like scrolling through Tubi or something and happened to see it and was like, oh, I'm going to give this a try. It looks decent. So if there really was a buzz, I'm not really sure why. I didn't find this particularly entertaining, but at the same time, you have to understand that I only just started watching horror movies like 8 years ago. And when I watched Halloween, the 70s, the original 70s, when I watched that for the first time just a few months ago, I thought that movie was extremely boring. And a lot of people, that's considered like a classic, and it helped propel certain aspects, especially within the slasher realm. And to me, I just thought it was extremely boring. So it's quite possible. Now, this is an 88 movie. I can't imagine within the horror realm this being super like groundbreaking. But it's possible that just because I didn't see it when it first came out, that it's just not hitting the same. But for me, it wasn't anything special. The kills were all basically just knives to the gut, getting your arms sawed off. As I'm speaking of that kind of violence, part of the nitpick that I want to bring up is at one point, a person gets a pitchfork smashed through their hand into dirt. Okay, we're not talking like into wood or something. We're just talking into dirt. The scarecrow smacks it, goes through their hand, and then the scarecrow walks away. And this person is screaming and yanking their hand. Well, I think any smart person would do their best to kind of get up on their knees and then yank the pitchfork out of the dirt. Now, I know a lot of people might not have experience with pitchforks. I do. You shove them into the ground, it's not the end of the world to get them out. You somehow shove it through wood, it's a little more difficult. But dirt, you can generally get them out quite easily. So why this person didn't just pull them out, the pitchfork out of the dirt, and then pull their hand off, I don't know. Instead, they leave it stuck in the dirt and yank it until it rips through their hand. That to me made no sense as far as the character's thought process. Unless you want to say they were so terrified that they weren't thinking straight, at that point I might say maybe, but I still think any kind of person with any semblance of sense going on isn't going to try to rip it through their hand. They're probably going to try to pull the pitchfork out.
It's a deadly race.
Oh, speaking of, right there. Right there. I was just talking about this.
In which the hunters and the hunted are destined to become victims. Beware of the scarecrow. Kill it, or become it. Scarecrows, the stuff nightmares are made of.
That was the first time I watched that trailer. I was unaware that they were going to show that in the trailer. But that worked perfectly since that's what I was talking about. So as the trailer showed, you got these people who, I'm repeating myself, my apologies. They rob, they hijack, and they fly to Mexico. They hijack this guy and his daughter, who may also have their dog in their plane, and they're forcing them to fly to Mexico. So they land to go after this guy who totally just double-crossed them. His plan didn't even seem totally thought out. When he lands, another weird thing, there was so much inner monologue going on in this movie. And if anybody's going to say I'm nitpicking, I will definitely give you this one because I don't have a valid answer for this. This is just like a criticism that has no way out, potentially, that I can think of. This guy jumps out. He gets caught in a tree. They make it seem like he somehow got knocked out. He's been unconscious, and he's hanging in the tree. He finds himself hanging in this tree, and he's like, oh, what did I do? He's not speaking. This is all inner monologue that you are hearing. He's like, what happened? Oh, yeah, I took the money. I'm stuck in this tree. What am I going to do? I'm making this up. These aren't the exact lines, okay? So don't hold me to it. He lets himself down. He falls like several feet, at least 2 stories in this tree. He lands. And the whole time you can hear his inner monologue. And he's like, okay, so I think I saw the money land over there. And I think there's a house over here. Yeah, okay. Now there's a house, so there should be some kind of vehicle that I can steal. And he has these like night vision. He's like, yep, there's a truck. This is my lucky night. And I'm like, I don't know, it seemed weird to me, this inner monologue, hearing it. And granted, most of us, from what I understand, can hear ourselves speaking to ourselves. So that makes sense. But I guess I kind of wish that they could have displayed all this without hearing the inner monologue. But it might not have worked. I mean, I'm definitely going to give some mercy on this nitpick of mine, but it felt a little weird how much of the inner monologue that was going on. But I'll get over it because making films is not easy. Speaking of making films, let me just quickly jump into the budget. It was around $450 $100,000 from what I understand. And some silly tidbits that I read is it did play in cinemas for 1 week, but just at one cinema. And the reason they did that is so that when they tried to sell it for distribution, they could say, yeah, this went to the cinemas, this played. But it literally was only at one theater, and it literally only played for 1 week. So they didn't make much off of that, but from what is reported from home video sales, they made over $3 million, so that's not a bad investment. Back to the movie. So this guy just randomly finds this car. He's looking for a key. He goes into this home. It's obviously abandoned. This is something that really bothered me. You see a picture on the wall. It's a photograph of 3 men. Throughout the movie, they will cut back to an image of this photograph. But there's never any explanation. Ever. It's just, there's a photograph. And I guess we're all supposed to assume that these guys lived here. But that's kind of weird. It's like, so we just have like 3 dudes that are just living in a farm together. Okay. I need a little bit more than that. That just doesn't totally make sense to me. This guy finds the key for this truck, jumps in the truck, turns it on. You know, you got this abandoned house and somehow this truck still has full tank of gas. He's able to find the key in this house and it turns on. No issues. He drives away. He finds the big stash of cash, throws it in his truck. He's driving. During this whole thing, he still has the radio set on and he can hear what's going on with the rest of the crew. He can hear that they're turning back. He can hear that they're jumping out and they're coming to get him. So he's trying to get away. And then suddenly the truck stops working. He jumps out, pops the hood. There's no engine. And he's like, wait, what? How the heck has this truck been running with no engine? Then they cut back to the house and the engine is just like freaking sitting in the yard and the engine is running in the yard. Okay, so they're obviously setting up the fact that this is like some kind of supernatural thing that's going on here. But you never understand why. You know there's scarecrows, and there's lots of scarecrows. At this point, the scarecrows start, coming alive and basically just stabbing people. Nothing real exciting. So this first guy who tried to double cross and take the money, he's the first death. They take him, do whatever to him. You assume that he's dead. Then the rest of the crew comes down. They parachute down, and they're trying to find him. And the one person, part of the crew that is left in the airplane, finally tells the pilot to land the plane. And he's like, I can't. And so this robber person's like, if you don't land the plane, I'm going to shoot your daughter. So he lands the plane. Then this robber, who is a female, takes the daughter. She says to this pilot, you stay here, keep the plane ready. We're going to go, and I'm going to keep her, as security so that you don't take off. We're going to go, and we're going to find the guys. So she takes the daughter, and she goes to find the rest of the guys. Now, the other guys, obviously, are closer to the dude who took the money. They get up to a fence that is around this house. And there's a sign on it that says, no trespassing. And one of the guys starts climbing the fence. And his buddy says, hey man, it says no trespassing. This seemed really absurd to me, coming from somebody who literally just robbed a bank and hijacked an airplane. Now suddenly he's concerned about signs that say no trespassing? What is this? Made zero sense. Anyway, they all the rest of the crew all make it into this house, and they're discussing, we need to find the guy who stole the money. Then the female crook, she comes, and she's pushing the daughter. And this line made me laugh so much. The daughters are like, stop pushing me. I'm getting thistles all on me. Again, I've been kidnapped. I don't know if I'm going to get killed. I'm not going to really be worried about getting thistles stuck to my pants. It seemed like such an absurd thing to be written into this. However, it did lead to a scene that I did find a little funny. So everybody has now converged into this home. You know, cut to the scene of the photograph again that doesn't make any sense other than kind of trying to establish that somebody lived there before. They're all there discussing about how they need to find the guy who double-crossed him, and they need to get their money because they're not leaving without their money. This part all makes sense. This is all logical. Then, suddenly, the guy who double-crossed shows up. They grab him. They start beating him up. Tell us where the money is. He's not saying anything. He refuses to answer. And you as the viewer are like, I thought that guy was dead for sure. How did he get away? They're punching him, and then they rip his shirt open. And when they rip his shirt open, you can see that he's been sliced open and stitched up again. And they're like, what the heck? Anyway, he's essentially undead. They chop his head off. They find that he's been stuffed full of a lot of this money. They're taking the time to pull this money out of him, and they're like wiping the blood off of the money. But now it's like, we need to find the rest of it. This isn't enough. So they're still sticking around. They have more encounters with these scarecrows, and this frustrated me so much. You never know the motivation of these scarecrows. You never understand any of it. It's not like, oh, these scarecrows were here to protect this, and therefore these spirits are doing that. It's none of like, oh, well, they're vengeful. There's no explanation whatever as to why these scarecrows are here, why they are alive, why they are vengeful. None of it. You're just there to be like, okay, well, they're scarecrows. Obviously, if they're alive, they're going to kill people, which led to one of the greatest lines in this movie. This place is haunted with some demonic demons. That made me chuckle, that line right there. The whole thistles getting stuck on the girl, this led to a scene that made me laugh. She's in the house, like pulling these little, stickers off of her. And one of the, robbers' backs is turned, and she's pulling them off of her clothes, and she's throwing them on this other person. That was about the only thing in there that I thought was kind of funny, like intentionally funny. The rest of it was just kind of like, well, that's funny because that's so lame. So that was the highlight for me. This girl pulling these thistles off of her and throwing them on this robber. That was the highlight of this movie for me. Long story short, because this movie really was not necessary, everybody's dead. One of the robbers and the daughter make it back to the plane. They're flying. Oh no, one of the scarecrows was in the plane. No, who would have thought? The one robber that is left pulls out a hand grenade, grabs the scarecrow, and they're literally leaned right next to the outside of the airplane, blows up, does nothing to the inside of the airplane. It only blows up the people. So I've never dealt with hand grenades, but I do have a feeling that the shrapnel and the explosion would have caused some kind of damage to the hull of this airplane and done some kind of a decompression or something. But no, completely safe. It was just the scarecrow and the last bad guy that got blown up. Hooray for us all. Spoilers, the dog comes out, starts eating the meat. The dog goes crazy, turns into some kind of a scarecrow zombie, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense, because they make it seem like it's some kind of a spiritual thing, not some kind of a virus that is causing like a zombie type thing. It's really just like these scarecrows are living. There's some kind of curse on them. There's never any point where it's like, oh, if you get bitten, you're going to become one of them. It's more like if the scarecrow gets a hold of you and does their ritual, I'm using ritual very loosely, then you will become an undead. So the fact that this dog becomes an undead from eating this, that came out of left field. It also, I was talking about the motivation of these scarecrows. Sorry, my nose is itching really bad. At one point, I thought they were going to get to some kind of like, oh, this is why they're doing it, because they showed them saw the hand off of a guy and the scarecrow was stitching it onto himself. So then I was thinking, oh, okay, this is the motivation. They're killing because they're trying to replace their own body parts. Okay, that makes sense. But it went nowhere. It was just that one time. Everybody else, they just kind of just killed and were like, yeah, okay, let's just cut them open and stuff them full of money. So it made no sense. I would like to go back to these comments that I read talking about how it had a lot of good buzz. I really don't get it. This movie was nothing special. But when I went to Wiki, they gave examples of how it was received. And all of, not all, but like a good majority, like 90% of the outlets that were reviewing this were giving it positive reviews, like 3 out of 4s, talking 8 out of 10s. I mean, they were giving it high scores and high praise. And I'm watching this and I'm like, this movie does not deserve this. So then I checked out Rotten Tomatoes, and there I saw kind of what my experience was. I was seeing the audience score and the critic score. Critics was like 40%, audience score was at 38. And I was like, okay, this makes more sense. This is how I experienced the movie. I did not find it fantastic. Nothing really engaging for me. At first, I thought the story was going to be interesting with that whole double cross going on. And then when I thought that they were giving a hint at the motivation of the scarecrows, I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, but it never went anywhere. In the end, everybody dies except for the daughter. And, the dog has to be put down, which is sad. I can't necessarily recommend this movie to you're just run-of-the-mill, not hardcore horror person, because it really doesn't have anything to offer. And even if you're a hardcore horror person, I'm not going to be like, you have to see this movie. This is really just something where if you're in some kind of a group that likes to talk about horror, you want to be part of the conversation. So you see it just so that you can be somebody who's not out of the loop. That's the extent that I can say to why you would want to watch this movie. Other than that, I feel that there was no purpose for this movie. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. I did not find it entertaining other than that one point where the girl was throwing the stickers at the other person, the thistles. That was the only entertaining part. The rest of it, I literally was just kind of questioning why they would make a decision so stupid. What was the motivation of this? Why isn't this person doing that? That was the general feeling that I had while watching this whole movie. So I cannot give it a recommend. I don't even think that watching it with a friend with pizza and beer is going to help you in this situation. I would give it a pass personally, but if you've seen it and you love it, you're part of that group that gives it a strong buzz. I would love to understand and hear from you, your perspective of why this is such an amazing movie and why people should watch it for more than just being part of the conversation. Please leave a comment. That would be fantastic. This has been Creepin' It Real, and I will see you in our next review. Later.